Good afternoon, gearheads. This is the 59 Ford Wheelman, and today's video is another video on name origins, in this case the Pontiac LeMans. LeMans, or Le Mans as it would be pronounced in French, is a city in northwestern France on the Sarthe River. It also happens to be the location where the prestigious 24 Hours of Le Mans road race is held, and has been held every year since 1923. That race, along with the Grand Prix in Monaco and the Indy 500 in Indianapolis, Indiana, are some of the most prestigious road races in the world. Now, as a fun trivia point, Pontiac never competed in, so clearly never won a race at Le Mans. So why the name? Simple, rebranding. In 1957, Pontiac, which prior to that model year had been considered a boring, dowdy, older person's car, decided to change its image, and one of the ways to do it was to come up with model names that were more performance-oriented. For example, Bonneville, Grand Prix, which we talked about both those in a different video. And in 1963, they replaced the Tempest name, which came from the 1958 engine that they introduced, to Le Mans. Now, at the time, the Tempest, and now Le Mans, is a compact car. It was a wide-body compact, and it was considered more of an economical type car. However, in 1964, it actually grew a little bit, and it became more of an intermediate car. It also adopted the A-body, which, if you're familiar with A-body styling as it progressed to the 60s, and we'll talk about it, became a very popular series of cars. Now, as it turns out, something else significant happened in 1964, which is that they added a trim and performance package with three very famous letters, GTO. Don't worry, we'll talk about it in a different video, but that's a little bit outside the scope of today's video. Now, in 1966, the GTO would become its own separate model, but again, we'll get to that later when the GTO discussion is had, because there's a lot of good stories to be told there. In 1968, the A-body lineup went through a pretty significant styling change, and they adopted more of what would be considered a classic muscle car styling, more often referred to as a Coke bottle shape. This happens to be a 1968 Pontiac LeMans, and you can see that it definitely has a more muscular set of styling cues. The fenders bulge out, the rear quarters bulge out. The center's a little bit pinched in. It's a shape often referred to as Coke bottle. This styling actually remained in effect until 1972, so it was a fairly popular styling series, and the styling did not change for a few years. However, in 1973, GM started restyling, and they were also starting to go to a 5-mile-an-hour bumper requirement due to federal safety standards. This required some more, shall we say, less sculpted girder-type bumpers. Also, rather than hardtop body styles where the window frames rolled down with the windows and there was a gap with no B-pillar, no fixed pillar between the front and rear windows, there was actually a fixed pillar now, and the old hardtop body style was no longer available. In 1977, which Pontiac had grown in size throughout the 70s up to that point, but in 77, the Le Mans was downsized once again closer to a more intermediate style car. The engines also were downsized, and the performance of the car definitely dropped. The 1970s and 80s are commonly referred to as Malaise era cars, and so that was where the styling began to drop off a good bit. Now, the Le Mans nameplate was discontinued finally in 1982 in favor of the Pontiac 6000. However, the name was not done entirely. In 1988, there was a Daewoo sedan that was exported to the United States and rebadged here as a Le Mans. Now, of course, looking at the pictures, you can tell that it was nothing like the 1960s era Le Mans, and it was also powered by a 1.6-liter engine with 74 horsepower, a pretty far cry from the mighty V8s available in the 60s and even into the 1970s. The Daewoo Le Mans was discontinued after the 1993 model year. Now, as another fun trivia talking point, Pontiac was not the first nor the only manufacturer to use a Le Mans name. From 1935 to 1937, a British car manufacturer named Singer actually put the Le Mans name on a Singer 9. Now, this time it was because of a car that fared well at Le Mans. The Singer 9 in 1933 actually finished 13th at the Le Mans 24-hour endurance race. However, the Singer was discontinued in 1937, so that nameplate didn't last very long. Certainly, Pontiac had a much longer run with it. Is there a possibility the Le Mans could come back again one day? Well, anything's possible, but one thing's for sure. Because Pontiac ceased production on October 31st, 2010, if the name ever does show up again, it won't be on a Pontiac. Once again, thanks guys for watching, and as always, please drive safe, live your best life, and hope to see you on the road.